Mr. Van Weele, very much enjoy seeing you. I remember meeting with you in 2013 about this very issue. And first, Madam Chair, I love this panel. We should take them with us everywhere. You all have done a really good job of illustrating a lot of issues, important issues, in a brief time. I do want to promote something for the audience and anybody interested in these issues, and it is an app called ISO To Go, produced by ISO, and it gives you moment-to-moment prices all over New England, where the demand curve. By the way, Mr. Van Weele, the demand is exceeding the forecast at this moment by about half a megawatt. You may want to call your office when we finish here. But it also gives where all the resources are: renewables, oil, gas, coal, nuclear. Very, very useful. Thank you for this. It's incredibly helpful. Now, I want to put some visuals I learned visually to what we've been talking about here today. The bottom red line on this chart is the Marcellus shale cost in the region in Pennsylvania, going back to the beginning of December. The blue line is the cost in New England. So what this tells us is it's not a natural gas price problem. It's a delivery problem, and that's what we've been talking about today. It's the infrastructure problem that we've been talking about. The problem with the infrastructure is, does anybody want to build a $2 or $3 billion pipeline to deal with this if it's not going to be necessary the rest of the year? And that's where we get into the trade-offs between storage and LNG as an option, and building the infrastructure. And this, I just want to indicate how these things all interrelate. The other piece is the relationship between what we just saw, which is natural gas prices and electricity. An absolute, almost entire, straightforward correlation, as you see. And this goes back 15 years. Hurricanes hit the Gulf, gas goes up, electricity in New England goes up. Same thing over the winter of 2014, the polar vortex, and we're up in this area. I saw $32 a megawatt hour recently. So these things are all interrelated. One of my favorite comments was from a friend of mine in Maine who said, there is rarely a silver bullet, there is often silver buckshot. And that's what we're talking about here, is a multiplicity of resources. And Ms. Clemens, you talked about efficiency. The cheapest kilowatt hour is the one you never use. So we've got efficiency opportunities, we've got renewables, we've got demand response, we've got storage, we've got infrastructure, we've got rate structure. Mr. McIntyre, we've got rate structure which will influence how we use power in terms of efficiency during the day. I realize I'm making a speech here. If you can find a question in here, you're welcome to it. Mr. Van Weele, talk to me about this, how we deal with this. Let's make it specific. Do we build a pipeline or we do more storage?
So I think it's going to come down to what policymakers decide to do. I think there's two parallel tracks in terms of this conversation in New England. The one track that we're going to be in the lead on is how do we make sure that the constraint is appropriately priced in the market. Because to Chairman McIntyre's point, unless we price that constraint, we're not going to get the reliability that we seek. And I think we learned some things over the past few weeks that make us think that we've still got work to do. I think the separate and parallel discussion is how to relieve these constraints. So to Ms. Clemens' point, and I agree with you, energy efficiency is one tool in the toolbox. Ms. Clemens, you may have missed it in our analysis, but we take into account and project forward all the energy efficiency efforts that the states are making, and the New England states have made significant efforts. I think they lead the nation now in terms of energy efficiency. But I think the evolution is occurring faster than what the states are doing with regard to these efficiency investments. And my fear really is that the retirements will happen more quickly than these investments will be made. And the other thing I look out...
And one of the problems I see here is that gas is the cheapest capital cost, and yet you're taking the price risk. And that's one of the trade-offs. But the way our system is working now, everyone's looking for low rates next year and the year after, when we don't have long-term 15-year power purchase agreements that will support the capital investment necessary for some of the other options.
Yes, I think the peakiness of the demand for this fuel is the issue. And I think we're going to be stuck with this problem for a long time, because if you think about where the region is going, in the long run, we want to take carbon out of transportation and heating, which means we're going to drive the demand for wholesale electricity up in the region. And so over time, we're going to have less utilization of the pipeline, but when you need it, you're going to really need it in a big way. And you can offset some of that through electric storage, but our issue really is seasonal storage. So I think the region needs to work through the various possibilities and understand what the cost-benefit trade-off
And
of
again,
each
you
of them
can't,
are.
you're talking about grid level storage, but it's hard to justify the cost of grid level storage if you only need it 2 weeks of the year, correct?
Exactly. And grid-level storage, in terms of today's technologies, are not very useful in a multi-day, multi-week event.
Thank you, Senator King.
Thank you.